Baruch Hashem, today is day number 279 of our daily study of Rambam, Sefer HaMitzvos. And in the 3 chapters a day study track of Mishnah Torah, we're continuing in Hilchos Shchenim, the laws of neighbors, chapters 7, 8, and 9. And as we mentioned yesterday and the day before, every day when we're doing Hilchos Shchenim, the laws of neighbors, we're going to repeat the same mitzvah. And as I mentioned yesterday and the day before, that mitzvah we originally learned back in Hilchos Chayvul Amazik in Sefer Nizikin. And if you don't understand that string of Hebrew words, go look at the classes from yesterday and the day before. Okay, today's mitzvah, positive commandment 236 is, I'm going to say it quickly because this is our third day doing it. Positive commandment 236 is the mitzvah to follow the Torah's laws about when somebody injures somebody else and the courts force him to pay compensation. Okay, now I'm going to share with you something interesting from today's 3 chapters a day of Mishnah Torah. From chapter 7, halacha 8. So we're in the laws of neighbors. So here's a neighbor type law. You have 2 guys. They live next to each other. And one says to the other, we'll call one Reuven, the other Shimon. So Reuven says to Shimon, I'm going to be building on my property. Just heads up. Or maybe one day Shimon sees the contractor come into Reuven's house and he says, hey, what are you doing? Oh, I'm building on my property. So Shimon says, hold on a second. What are you building? Can I see your plans? And he says to him, no, I don't want you to build there. You're going to block my window. I have a nice view right now. You're going to ruin my view. Okay. So according to halacha, Shimon is allowed to object and say, don't ruin my view. Now, what if Reuven counters and he says, you know what? I will put in, and I'll pay for it. My contractor's coming in. I'll have him do it first. He'll put in windows in your house that are higher up, where it'll see over my structure, and you'll still have a view. Does Shimon have to accept that? And the answer is no. Shimon can say, no, I don't want that. I'll tell you why. Because I don't want you poking holes in my, I don't know, you can tell me you're going to have a professional do it. I don't care if it's a professional. The point is that when you start making holes in walls, it weakens the wall, and I don't want my wall to be weakened. It's just not, I'm not comfortable with that. So Shimon is allowed to decline that offer. Now, what if Reuven counters and says, well, I'll tell you what, I won't poke holes in your wall. What we'll do is we'll build you a brand new wall. And in your brand new wall, you'll have higher windows that will see over my structure. So it's win-win for you. You'll still have your view, and you'll have a brand new wall, and I'll pay for the whole thing, Reuven says. Does Shimon have to go along with that? So the Rambam says, no, Shimon could still object and say, you know what? No, because while you're doing that construction, I'm going to have to move out. I mean, this is this big construction. I'm not interested in being displaced while you're doing the work. Well, what if Reuven says, yeah, but I'll pay for your hotel. I'll put you up in the 4 Seasons. You'll have a staycation. It'll be nice for you. Is Shimon forced to go along with that? And the answer is no. Shimon can say, you know what, thank you very much. I appreciate your offering to build a new wall, and I appreciate your offering to put me up in a nice hotel, but that's an inconvenience for me. It's a disruption in my life. And no, I'm not obligated to accept this disruption just so you can have, your building project. And halacha is going to back up Shimon. Okay. But the Rambam says something very interesting. From this, we can come to the conclusion that were the scenario to be different, where let's say Reuven's able to do all that stuff for Shimon, and let's say he wouldn't have to move. Let's say there would be no inconvenience to him. It wouldn't bother him. He wouldn't even know that it's going on. In that case, the Rambam says, we would force Shimon to take that deal. We would force him. The courts would force him. Why? Because not to accept is called midas stoim. The attributes of Stoim. Stoim is the biblical city of, we call it in English, Sodom and Gomorrah. Stoim was known for being very cruel. They were very stingy. They did not, by policy, they did not do anything to benefit anybody else. So the Rambam says to do something where one person will gain and the other person is not going to be damaged, and he won't even be inconvenienced. To refuse just to deny somebody else benefit, even though it's not going to bother you in any way, that's called midas sdoim. And according to halacha, the Rambam says, we could force somebody to, like in this case, we could force Shimon to allow Reuven to build the building in that way, where Reuven is saying, I'm going to do everything that's going to offset any damage to you. There will be no inconvenience, no disruption. And if that's really the case, where there's not even an inconvenience to Shimon, halacha will force Shimon to go along with it, because not to do so is called midas daim. And the Rambam concludes and says, it's very interesting, V'chein kol davar. And so to any matter, that one person benefits, ve'ein chavere mafsid ve'ein chaser klum, and the other person is not going to miss anything. It's not even going to be inconvenient to him. Koifen alav, the courts can force him to go along with that scenario. Fascinating halacha and just a general rule for life. Okay, we'll see you for more tomorrow, God willing.